Hello, my lovely ESL 0102 students. This is Professor Holly, and I'm here to talk to you today about modals, our very first topic that we're covering this semester. Now, modals are covered in Unit 7 and 8 of our grammar textbook. Okay, so what's a modal? If you have your textbook, you can look at the article that's on page 99. This again is for the second edition of the textbook that we use. If you're using the first edition, it's just the first page of Unit 7. But if you look at that, it'll give you several examples of what is called our target grammar. And in our book, the things that are in bold, those words and phrases that are in bold, are what they're teaching us in that particular unit. So if you're looking it over and you're reading the article, you can see in there, have to give, should have brought, can't remember, might want to follow, must observe, have to take in, and several other words and phrases. These are examples of either true modals or what I like to call quasi-modals. These are modal-like verbs. But what is a modal at all? We're going to start with the true modals. These are the real verbs, the helping verbs or auxiliary verbs. So in point 1, you can see that there's 9 true modals in English. May, might, can, could, shall, should, will, would, and must. Now, these true modals have no real tense. I realize some of you may have been taught in the past that modals have tense. That's just to simplify things when teaching to beginning level students. But in reality, there is no tense and there's no agreement with the true modals. Now, if we do want to talk about something that's in the past tense, some of the modals have what's called a perfect form. But in general, no tense, no agreement. So if you look at my examples in point 2, you should talk to an advisor. Doesn't matter what the subject is, it's going to be you should talk. So I should talk, he should talk, we should talk, they should talk. No agreement. And the second thing on there is an example of a perfect form. You should have talked to an advisor. That's how you would actually talk about what's called past advice. We're going to be getting to that in our next lecture. The third point is modals are really very easy grammatically. Again, no tense, no agreement, no endings to worry about. You take your modal and you use the base form of your main verb, and that's it. You've got it. The difficulty comes in with the meaning. The meanings change dramatically based on context. So I could say Ellie could speak to an advisor. That's polite advice or a possibility. I can say Ellie could speak 3 languages when she was a kid. That's past ability. So in both cases, I'm using the same modal could, the same main verb speak, but could speak to an advisor? Well, that's talking about either now or the future. Could speak 3 languages? That's a past ability. So here the context is letting me know the meaning and the time. So again, when we're doing our modals, we're going to have to learn all these different meanings, all this different context. So again, with true modals, the most important thing is context. The meaning can change based on time and meaning of the sentence. Another thing that complicates modals is that negative modals are not always the opposite in meaning of their affirmative friends. So a lot of things to keep in mind as we're going through. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to look at my sample sentences on this slide. It's just a variety of modals and verbs, and I want you to pause this lecture here and in a notebook, just jot down what you think these mean. And when I say what do they mean, just what do they mean to you? Are they giving advice? Are they giving permission? Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it a prohibition? Just what kind of meaning does it have? And what time is indicated in each sentence? Once you've finished making notes on each of these sentences, you can start up the lecture again and advance to the next slide, and we're going to talk them through. All right, so the first one we had, it should rain tomorrow. Here, the word should is actually making a prediction. All right, so there's a good chance it will rain. And of course, because we use the word tomorrow, we're talking about the future. You should leave early. Here, we're using the same modal as in number 1, but should is giving advice. It's advisability. It means it's a good idea to leave early. And it's talking about either right now or again the future. We need more context to know which one. Bob should have eaten breakfast. Okay, should have eaten breakfast means Bob didn't do it. Should have eaten is one of those perfect modals that I mentioned briefly on the previous slide. Bob didn't eat, that was bad. Our book calls it past advice. I call it regret or criticism. All right. You can open the window. That's either saying you have the ability, it's unlocked, the window does open, unlike the window in the building I often teach at. But my window at home opens. So that's ability, or I'm giving you informal permission. If you say, Miss Holly, it's hot in here, I say, oh, you can open the window. You have permission, informally. He can't have been in New York. So look at that. So I've got the negative, but I also have a perfect. He can't have been in New York. Well, the perfects will make it a past, and using can't is actually for expressing, in this case, disbelief. You may take a break. That's informal permission. And see, with an online class like ours, you can take a break whenever you want to. Yay! Okay, anyway, moving on. It may have rained last night. So may take a break was giving permission, but may have rained. That's not permission at all. Nope, that's a 50-50 chance or less. In the past. He had better finish the assignment, or he'd better finish the assignment. That's strong advice, and it implies a warning. Now notice that when I say it, he'd better, you can barely hear the had, but you still have to write it. He had better, or you need to write it as a contraction, the He''D for he'd. You don't want to just write he better, even though that's what it may sound like to you. He'd better do this. And notice that, when had's a main verb, it's talking about the past, but had better finish the assignment is now or the future. It has nothing to do with the past when it's being used here. Now, had better is actually a quasi-modal, and we're going to be getting to that again. Alex might not want to take the Beltway. Might not want to. Again, it's a phrase. We've got might not, and then using might not want to before the base form of a verb is for making very polite or weak advice. And we might have a quiz today. Possibility, same as in number 7, except that this is, well, because I use the word today, present, talking about the present or the near future. But again, 50-50 chance. And again, 1 through 10, we've got modals, we've got quasi-modals, we've got things talking about the future, the present, and the past. Just to emphasize that those 9 helping verbs plus their friends, these phrases that I call the quasi-modals, they do a whole lot of meaning to shade sentences and let us know what is, well, implied. We're going to start with the form of the true modals. So the true modals, like I said, are those 9 words, those auxiliary verbs or helping verbs. May, might, can, could, shall, should, will, would, and must. The form is very easy. All 9 of them have the same form. And remember, there is no tense and there is no agreement. So it doesn't matter what subject I put in. It's going to look the same. So the form is subject plus the modal plus the base form of the verb and then whatever would make your predicate. So object, etc., etc. And whenever we're doing this, we're actually going to be talking about how to make an affirmative, how to make a negative statement, how to make a yes or no question and answer it, how to make a WH subject question, and then other WH means any kind of WH question where the WH word is not the subject because it has different grammar from a WH subject question. So every time we learn a new grammar point at this school, you want to be able to use it in affirmatives, negatives, and these 3 question types. Whenever you've learned a new tense, in this case when we're learning a modal, and once we move on to, future grammar topics. So again, very, very simple. Marie can speak French. Marie can't speak French. Now notice the negative, I'm using the contraction. I can also write it out cannot. And just as a note, in American English, it's much more common to write cannot as one word rather than can and not. All the other modals, you would write the modal and the not as two words. You can write the cannot as two words. It's just not as common in American English, as I said. So I'm going to be writing it as one word myself. Yes, no question. Can she speak French? Now notice here, just to make a yes, no question, you just take the first helping verb in the sentence. So in this case, the can. You take the subject and you invert them. So can she speak French? Okay. And when I'm speaking, by the way, my intonation will rise at the end. Can she speak French? My voice going up at the end lets my listener know that I've asked a yes or no question, by the way. If I were to answer it, it would be yes, she can. No, she can't. All right, WH subject, again, the WH word. WH words are who, what, where, when, why, how much, etc. It's the subject in the question. So who can speak French? So I've got the who, I've got my verb, and then I've got an object. So you can see that it's just, I'm replacing the word Marie with the word who. Who can speak French? WH questions have falling intonation at the end, by the way. And then other WH, anything like I said, you know, what, when, where, how, why, how much, etc. You're going to put that, what, and then it's going to have what looks like yes, no grammar after it. Can she speak? Just remember that you never want to put the answer to the question in the question. So if I'm going to say, what can she speak? Okay, the answer would be French. I would never say, what can she speak French? Because French is the answer to what. I can say, why can she speak French? When can she speak French? All right, but again, make sure that your answer is never in the question. So again, that's a form for the true modals. Any of the modals we use would have the same form. The form, not the meaning. Take a couple of minutes and in your notebook, just write your own affirmative, negative, yes, no question, WH subject question, and other WH question using the words that I gave you here. The patient should call and the doctor. Go ahead and pause this presentation here, and then when you're ready, you can start it up again. All right, let's check your answers. I'm not writing these, you're just going to have to listen to me. So the affirmative is really easy. The patient should call the doctor. It's just the words that I put there in that order. Because remember, you're just going to have your subject plus your modal plus the base form of the verb, and then whatever else you need to complete the sentence. If I want to make it negative, the patient shouldn't call, so should not call the doctor. If I want to make a yes-no question, again, I invert or switch the subject with that first helping verb. Here, there's only one helping verb. Should the patient call the doctor? Yes, he should. No, he shouldn't. That's how we would answer them. Who should call the doctor? And why should the patient call the doctor? All right, those are some examples for this one. All right, let's move on. Just going to take a minute or two to talk about the perfect modals. As I mentioned briefly before, some modals are used in the perfect form if they're talking about the past. The perfect form, well, you're going to have your subject, you're going to have your modal, you're going to have the word have, and you're going to have, here it says PP, that means past participle. And remember, for regular verbs, the past participle looks like the simple past tense of a verb. For irregular verbs, well, that's what's in the chart in the back of your book. In 101, you had to memorize the chart of irregular past and past participles. Yeah, you're still going to need that same chart for this class. So again, that's the formula for the affirmative, but here's what all five look like. So Alan might have gone, and in conversational speech, I'd say Alan might have gone, so might have. All right, Alan might not have gone. All right, Alan might not have gone in conversational speech. Might Alan have gone? Who might have gone? And where might Alan have gone? So again, just so you know, the formula for the perfects, if you're using a modal with a perfect, this is how it's going to go. All right, you're not going to ever change the have, you're not going to change the PP, those are going to stay the same no matter what your subject is. So if I were saying she should have gone, She should not have gone. Should she have gone? Who should have gone? Again, if I'm using should instead, it's going to look exactly the same. So pretty easy to make the form, not easy to use. So we've talked about it. We've practiced it a tiny bit. Let's see if you know the form. We're going to do our very first quiz. It's going to be modal check 1. So it's right after this in Blackboard. All right, you'll need the password to start the exercise. There's always going to be a password for the quizzes because I want students to listen to the lectures to make sure they're not just guessing. The password for this one is actually the word modal, all little letters. Notice it's lowercase. Now again, you can do your checks, your quizzes as often as you like, but you really must do it before you move on to the next mini lecture. I just say must here. I'm not going to stop you from going on. All of these comprehension checks are actually due at the last day that a module is open, but I recommend strongly, all right, do it before you move on to mini lecture 2. All right, my friends, this is it. If you've got any questions, you can post them in the discussion board. If you don't have any questions, just go ahead and keep on working, and I'll see you online.